So this video is going to be about operations with complex numbers, but let's make sure that we know what a complex number is. So a complex number is any number that can be written in the form of a plus bi. And so really anytime you have I involved, you have a complex number. Now up until this point we were just saying, that there was an I, we'd have like 40i, okay? And so this was just the imaginary part of a complex number. So it was kind of looking like this. But just like any other time, there's no need to write that 0, so we weren't writing the real part of this complex number. So, just keep in mind that anything with an I is a complex number. But when you talk about complex number, usually you have a real part and an imaginary part. And so anything like -2 plus 40i, so anything in that form would be a complex number. So adding and subtracting complex numbers is as easy as adding and subtracting like terms. You just are only combining what you can. And so the addition one, it's just 6 minus 3i plus -5 plus 8i. And you're looking for like terms, so 6 plus -5 is 1. -3i plus 8i is positive 5i. Okay, so it's that easy. Now, just like with subtracting anything, please watch out for your signs. It's much safer when you think about this to change this to plus 5i minus 8i. And if you do that, then you're just combining like terms. You don't have to worry about anything. Sorry, that shouldn't be an I there. Okay, so then it would be 6 plus 5 is 11. -3i minus 8i is -11i. When it comes to multiplication, again, everything's basically the same as multiplying any polynomial. Just remember to deal with your I rules. If you get a I squared, make sure you simplify that. So when we distribute this 6, it's just like it was before. We get 18 plus 42i, and we can't reduce that at all. When we distribute a -2i to this one, we would get -8i plus 10i squared. Okay, so treat the I like a variable, but remember there is no such thing as I squared. I squared is really just -1. So then this is really -8i minus 10. And then usually you write complex numbers as the real value first, and then the imaginary part. So if you're multiplying two complex numbers together, make sure that you FOIL. You never, always FOIL if you have to. Don't ever forget that. So we're going to take and distribute the 6 to both of the parts of the second complex number. So we get -18 plus 24i. And then we're going to turn around and distribute the -I to both of the parts of the second complex number. So plus 3i minus 4i squared. And then we're going to combine like terms. And you should never be left with more than 2 terms when you're doing this, when you're multiplying two complex numbers together. Remember that this I squared is really a -1. So that really becomes plus 4. And so then when we combine like terms, we get -14 plus 27i. So I'll do 2 different examples with dividing with complex numbers. And remember, you cannot leave I in the denominator because it is a radical. Now, in a previous video, I talked about if it's just I, some version of the imaginary part of a complex number. So now we're going to look at a full complex number and what to do. And this should, if you remember that I is a radical, this should remind you of dividing with just radicals. and we're going to have to use a conjugate. Remember, a conjugate is just changing that middle sign, so we're going to multiply both numerator and denominator by 2 plus 5i here. And we do have to distribute and FOIL. So the numerator is going to become negative 6 minus 15i. And then when we FOIL the denominator, we're going to get 4 plus 10i minus 10i, and that's the whole point right there. And then minus 25i squared. Right, this part has to happen so that it gets rid of your i's for you. So then negative 6 minus 15i over 4 plus 25, because the I squared becomes a negative. And then we finally get negative 6 minus 15i over 29. And you should always check to see if you can simplify any of that. But on this problem, we cannot. So to simplify this problem, we're going to use a conjugate again. The only difference is that we're going to have to FOIL in the numerator. So remember that the conjugate is going to look like that. We're just changing the middle sign there. And we do have to FOIL all over the place. So then we get a negative 3 plus 2i plus 15i minus 10i squared. And that's going to be all over 9 minus 6i plus 6i, and that was the whole point, minus 4i squared. Okay, so I'm going to combine terms up in the numerator, and we're going to have negative 3 plus 17i plus 10. In the denominator, we're going to have 9 plus 4. And then finally, we're going to get 7 plus 17i over 13. Again, you should always check to see if you can simplify, and this cannot be simplified, so we are done.